What's going on, everyone? My name is Marco, and I'm the founder of Horizon Ops. We are a consulting company that focuses on data expertise, automation and no-code expertise, and operations expertise. And we use all those expertises to help you scale. So today I want to talk about the difference between Airtable and Google Sheets at a high level. And this is about choosing the right data management platform as a business owner. And I want to stay at the high level. I don't want to dive into the actual nitty gritty of the features. Maybe that's for another video, but this just hopefully answers your question of what platform should I use for my business and when should I use one over the other. So I'll start off with Google Sheets just because it's the most well known. It's known as, the Excel, but on the web. And at a very high level, I think this is just Google Sheets is best for quick data analysis and, creating different like financial models. So if you want to perform complex calculations and do quick analysis with ease, Google Sheets is your way to go. Unfortunately, a lot of people, just because the ease of the UI and being able to import stuff and add different, rows at once, people treat it as a way to manage their workflows. So they use it for workflow management. But especially when you're trying to scale and you're getting a lot more clients and your internal operations are a lot more complicated, it really does not suit it, and it's going to lead you down a path I call sheets hell. And so what is sheets hell? Well, it's managing 100 different sheets with 20 different columns each, and each one of your team members has to keep every single one in sync, and there's consistently errors between different sheets because things don't get synced up. And so that's not to operate, a business. If you're trying to scale past 20, 30, 50K a month, you have to use a database. And so I'll get into, that's a good segue to understand what Airtable is. So fundamentally, Airtable operates as a database. And so the advantage of this is you get to sync data with one another. So, example off the top of my head is managing clients and projects that are related to those clients. Now, database is what you call a relational database. And in this case, relational, you could just think as, relationships between different things. And so you might have a database, a table within that database that's for clients. So what clients you have, and then the projects as another table within the database, which is the projects that you're fulfilling for those clients. And so, you can think of two different sheets. If you had two different sheets, you might have to, every single time you update a project, now you have to go back to your client sheet and see, okay, which client is this for? And so you can imagine that's a really simple example, but when you're operating with, 30 different things within your business, this becomes a huge pain in the ass. And so that at the premise, working with a database that allows you to keep things in sync and maintain those relationships. So you reduce a lot of the redundancy, a lot of the extra, redundant, tedious work, and you reduce the errors because everything's in sync. So now that you know the fundamental differences between those two, I want to dive into also why Airtable is a bit more unique than just a regular database. So this is actually taken from one of their webinars, but Airtable aims to solve a unique challenge in the modern work environment, and so it caters to the increasing trend of decentralized and distributed work. So what does that mean? So let's take a look at this image actually, because it's a good way of visualizing this. You could see each of these different business functions, and you might have the same ones in your business, but each of these different business functions might be operating in their own way. They might have their own workflows, and they also might be purchasing, different software from the other that are different from the other business functions. So the product team might be using software A, the marketing team might be using software B, et cetera, et cetera. So what does that actually mean? Well, let's say that product was working on a new feature launch or product launch, and marketing was about to market, said launch. Well, they're using different, project management software, data management software, etc. So they're not in sync. Marketing has a complete different, pulse on things than product, and vice versa. And so they have to constantly, set up meetings. They have to ask for data all the time, and things are just not in sync because they're using different tools. It makes sense. And so what Airtable tries to do is it tries to aggregate all of this information in terms of one single source of truth, and that's what they call it. And so now, instead of using all these different tools, you have a layer in which all the different business functions and every part of your business uses that's synced, and that each one of the different business functions and teams can now use. And so you have this data layer, and then you could build really powerful apps on top of that. And I'll talk about that in the next section. But what this brings are three things. So flexibility, so it allows your teams to customize their data management solution in their own way. And I'll get to that a little bit later in terms of views. So you could create different views based off what you're interested in, but it's fundamentally the same data. It allows you to collaborate a lot more efficiently because, like I said, now in this scenario, imagine they're all working under the same database. And so now, instead of or marketing having to constantly set up meetings with product, now they could just set up a view and see when the product features are going to launch, for example. And the last thing is integration. So Airtable is a modern platform, and it really pays attention to integrations. There's so many different tools out there that at some point you're probably going to benefit from integrating with other SaaS products, and so it's really powerful with integration. And so let's move on to the next point of the key features. So I talked about building these applications on top of this database. What does that even mean? Well, first, I want to actually distinguish what a database is compared to a spreadsheet. And so, Google Sheets at a high level are just spreadsheets, right? And Airtable in this case is what you call a relational database. You could think of the word relational as just relationships between different things. So, for example, you have a clients table because databases are made of different tables. You have a clients table which manages all the different clients that you currently have, and then you have a projects table. And so instead of having to constantly update both of those things when one thing changes in one of those tables, things are in sync now. And so you can think of the spreadsheet example as, if you had the clients spreadsheet and the project spreadsheet, well, you add in a new client sheet, and then you have to say, oh, okay, well, what project is this coming from? So then you go to the project spreadsheet, and then you go back to the client spreadsheet, and then you update the table, the data that you just found. Sorry if you can't follow that, but even with a scenario of two different spreadsheets, it becomes a little annoying. Now imagine that with 30 different things within your business. So maybe you have marketing campaigns in there as well. And so when you have to update stuff, it's really annoying to keep things in sync. That's the point that I'm trying to make. Whereas when you use a database, it's a lot more simple because things are connected with one another. And so you reduce a lot of the redundant effort that you're making with updating data. And it's just a lot more powerful, and it prevents a lot of mistakes, and it just allows you to move a lot faster. So, like I said, it structures your data efficiently and maintains connections between different data sets. This is incredibly useful, and you really don't understand the power of this until you start using this within your company or your business. The second thing is intuitive app building. So once you have the database set up, you could create custom applications without coding. So it's a no-code environment. And it empowers your teams to build tailored solutions for their specific needs really quickly. So back to the example of product and marketing teams, You might be now using a single source of truth. So the actual database here, which is depicted right here on your Airtable. And now your marketing team views the data however it likes, and then your product team views the data however it likes to cater to their workflows and needs. Marketing might have campaigns that are that depend on the product roadmap, and and product now only just sees its own roadmap. And so going to this picture here, this is one of the pictures that they had on the webinar. It's extremely powerful because you're operating under a single source of truth, so everyone has the same data, but now teams could view that data however they like, or interact with that data however they like. And so the last portion here is the extensibility. And so as a modern platform as well, on top of the integrations, they also have automations. So you could build automations directly on the platform. But say, for example, you already had a Salesforce pipeline on Salesforce that had a whole bunch of lead information or something. You could have that synced directly with Airtable in real time. So it's extremely powerful for syncing data that already exists too. You don't have to go around and recreating stuff if you don't need to, or if you have different needs, because it's 2024. You're probably using a whole bunch of different tools. And so I just included the different tiers here of different plans. So it goes by how many entries, or what's called records, on Airtable that you actually have within your different bases. Base is just an individual database. Free plan 1,200 with 2 gigabytes, plus plan is 5,000, Pro is 50, Enterprise is 250,000 records with 1,000 gigabytes of attachment space. Cool. So let's move on. So Airtable is a connected ads platform. So the goal is to provide a single source of truth for teams, as I mentioned before, and it enables building custom, powerful apps on a shared data set. So the shared data set is the key there. So for example, for different teams, your marketing team might have a content calendar. Your product team might have a product roadmap to plan and track your product development efficiently. And going back to marketing, you might have a campaign tracker to monitor everything in real time. And so you create this because all the data is under the hood as the same, and you just have to change how you interact with it. So I'm going to go into Airtable here. And if you haven't seen this before, I will be creating and have a Airtable tutorial for beginners, so you could understand what this is. But these are your different, this is a base here, and you have your different tables within that base. So we have a movies table here, which, as you can see, has the name of the movie, the release year, the genre, and it has movie nights, which is a link to this, which is another table. And so back to that client and project example, you can think of them as having, in this case, it would be having clients here and then projects here, and then having a link between them through this field. And this is called a linked field here. So you keep things in sync. And so, you have this one view here as a grid. This is called a grid view. And maybe, your accounting department was going through finances, and this might be an invoice table. And so they were using this, this view because they're, so accustomed to spreadsheets. But, you could also use different views. So going back to that content calendar, you could literally view the same data just in a different manner. So in this case, there's, an actual calendar here, and you could see that this is actually synced to the grid view, which is really neat. So this table is movie nights. So in this scenario, where you're gonna, see a movie at what friend's place. And you could see here, if I add something here, Marco. Then it will also show up over here, which is really powerful. And you could maybe get an idea of how powerful this is. You also have different views here. So you have a gallery. Maybe this is good for your content team. You have your Kanban, which is good for your project management or product team. You have your timeline, list, Gantt chart, and you could also create forms on here. So this gets really powerful really quickly because now you could sync data between each other, and you could also view it however your specific need, however your specific team views data or has their workflow set up. In this case, your project management team could have a Kanban board set up, or your product team can have a Kanban board set up, and it's all the same data under the hood. And so you're operating under a single source of truth. It's incredibly powerful for workflow management. And so just as a final comparison here, when it comes to data complexity, Airtable is really high. And so that discussion of relationships between different data, so your clients and your project, that's a relationship. And so Airtable is able to capture that really well because under the hood, it is a database. It's the same concept as what Facebook uses or what Google uses. They use databases to store all of their data, and they're able to do so really efficiently. So Google Sheets is low to medium unless it's for data models. So maybe you're building a financial model as an investment banker. You're not going to be using Airtable for this. It's just a lot quicker to use to do that quick analysis. And in this case, it doesn't really have to do with workflow management. Custom views, like I just showed you right now on Airtable, you could have multiple different views for different teams. So grid, Kanban, calendar, etc. And Google Sheets, it's super limited. You just have your grid view, and then you could also create visualizations using charts and stuff. But it's very limited. Learning curve. So Airtable is a lot steeper. That's why it's, if you're going to consider using Airtable and you don't know where to start, feel free to book a call with me or my team on my website below for Horizon Ops, because you want to be able to use Airtable you want to milk it for the most of its abilities. And that means setting up the database correctly. Fundamentally, it's still a database, so it should still have the right, entity relationship diagram when you're actually sketching things up of how your business looks like in terms of the data model. And you should make it as efficient as possible. Otherwise, what's the point of using Airtable? You should just use Google Sheets if you don't want to capture any of the efficiency gains that comes with the platform. So there is a steep learning curve. You do have to know about databases if you want to really milk this thing and help your company scale. But that's why companies like Horizon Ops exist, or people with computer science degrees or software engineering backgrounds. The cost, so there's different plans depending on how much you need, like I mentioned before. And the integration is a lot more extensive on Airtable, so you could connect with Slack, Salesforce, a whole bunch of different platforms, and you could create those automations directly on the platform as well, which is super powerful. And then Google Sheets just has the Google ecosystem and the plugins, but it's not nearly as extensive as Airtable. So when should you choose Airtable or Google Sheets? So use Airtable when you need complex data relationships, custom views, and extensive integrations. And these views, it's not just viewing something. Don't get the notion that just because it's called a view, you're only just reading information or looking at it. You could still interact with data like I showed you with the content, with the grid, putting something in the grid and it shows up in your calendar. You could still manage your workflows and interact with the data directly with these views. It's just, conform to how your team works or how you work. Use Google Sheets when the needs are simple, focus on calculations and basic data analysis, or maybe you want to just, calculate a quick P&L for the last month and you want to do it quickly. That would be a good case one to use Google Sheets. And when you're consider a team, so evaluate your team's technical skills and willingness to learn new tools. There is a learning curve, but like I said, you could partner with us at Horizon Ops, and we could build a database for you and help you milk a lot of these different features that really bring your infrastructure to be able to scale to the next level. And then of course your budget. So just to wrap things up here, both Airtable and Google Sheets offer valuable features for data management. Airtable shines in complex relational data scenarios with extensive customization, which is ultimately the best when it comes to workflow management. And if you're growing quickly and you want to scale, but you don't want to pay $50,000, I'm not kidding when I say this, $50,000 plus for a custom application that has its own database inside of it, you could work with Airtable professionals like us to build a database for you, build views for your teams that are proportionally, equivalent to what you're already doing operationally. And yeah, Google Sheets excels in simplicity and integration within the Google ecosystem. Consider your specific needs, teams, dynamics, blah, blah, blah. So, TLDR, use Google Sheets for quick data analysis. And if you want to take your workflow management and operations to the next level, then Airtable is probably the best choice for you. So hopefully you got some value out of that. This video ended up going a lot longer than I anticipated, but yeah, hopefully you got some value out of that. And, we'll keep a tab on the channel. We'll be posting more tutorials and more videos like this that help you determine what tools you could use in your business to help you scale. So thanks. Appreciate it.